Hello everyone, this is the Dark Knight or Elgatostreamer now. You can see how I'm on my connection testing page. To upload it. And you wanna know why it's like that? Is because I try to do an experiment. This one YouTuber your internet. There's a words of how he does it. See if he'll be less. See how it went from second on the download to load. One 137. Okay. Experiment that I did. I'm trying to use it. Internet booster. Probably call it that, and I think he called it that too. But this same YouTuber, made more videos other than the one I've been watching lately. Let's see what happens if I do it. For the upload. Gigabytes per second. Went from 9 bytes per second. 8 kilowatt. It just changes to a test. It will either go up or about the well.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my...
It was at actually the router, not the modem. That was the first one I was router.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Hey Shady Lady, and
Obviously it's stuck on her. Where did I put the mouse? Router modem. All kinds of these. You can actually experience.
Hey, what's up guys? I'm Theo Joe, and in this video I'm going to teach you how you can get a faster internet speed that you're currently paying for without paying anything extra, no matter what internet company you have. I'm going to show you what you need, how to do it, and why it works, so stay tuned. I'm sure you're going to be surprised at how easy this really is. We're basically going to take advantage of how your internet company sets the speed limit for your connection, and then remove that limit. In most cases, this will mean that you will get the fastest internet speed possible that your ISP offers without paying anything. Let me explain. You see, this is how your internet company sets your connection speed. When you buy an internet plan, the company will mark your account for whatever speed you bought, of course. Then, once your router and modem are set up, they will send a signal to that equipment called an account setup ping, and this contains information about your account. Your modem then saves this information because it's required to be able to connect to your ISP. That's why whenever you get a new modem, you usually have to call your ISP for them to send a refresh signal for it to work again. This first message sent to your modem contains data on what internet speed you should have so that your router doesn't request more bandwidth than what you're actually paying for. So then anytime you go to use the internet to download a file or anything like that, your router sends another signal to the ISP requesting the file at whatever speed you're paying for. And this is called a speed pulse signal. And this signal is essentially a simple standing wave, and how it works is the internet speed is actually determined by the amplitude of this signal. Now that all sounds complicated, but all you need to know is that if you amplify the speed pulse signal, your ISP is going to give you more bandwidth and therefore a faster internet speed. Now, of course, your router is supposed to send the correct signal from when it was first configured with your account. But here's the secret. We can actually amplify the speed pulse signal ourselves. So that means that if we were able to amplify and max out the speed pulse signal, we would get the maximum internet speed capable of the ISP, so you're essentially tricking the ISP system into giving you your maximum bandwidth. So now that you understand how your internet speed is determined, you may be wondering how we can amplify that speed pulse signal so that we can get the faster internet speed. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you in this video. Now you're only going to need a couple things. First of all, some electrical tape, any kind will do, and also 2 rechargeable AA batteries. Used correctly, these will be able to amplify the speed pulse signal and max out your connection speed. As usual, I'm going to go into the science behind all this and all the technical aspects, but if you want to get right into the tutorial, you can just skip ahead, that's fine. So now let's get into the cool science stuff and explain why this works. You see, the speed pulse signal is first generated in the router and then sent to the modem. The frequency is going to change depending on your ISP, and it really doesn't matter. All we need to do is be able to somehow amplify the speed pulse signal at some point between the router and the modem, so then it will be automatically forwarded to the ISP to initiate the file transfer at the additional amplitude. With a little bit of physics knowledge, it's really not that difficult to figure out how we can do this. We're going to use the batteries to create a transformer that will step up the voltage of the signal. And no, I don't mean transformers, I mean an electrical transformer. Transformers they're essentially two coils of wire that sit next to each other, but they have very interesting properties. Depending on how many turns are in each coil, we can use a transformer to increase or decrease the voltage in a circuit. This can be calculated by the following equation. The voltage in the secondary coil divided by the voltage in the primary coil equals number of turns in the secondary coil divided by the number of turns in the primary coil. So for example, if there are twice as many turns in the second coil as the first, you're going to get twice the voltage. Let me show you. If we have any voltage X and we have 1 turn in the primary coil and 3 in the second, if we solve for the voltage in the second coil, it will be 3 times X. So we use this very simple transformer to multiply the voltage by 3. This works through what's called magnetic induction. As any current passes through a wire, it's going to create a magnetic field. And if you put a changing magnetic field next to another wire, it will induce a voltage in that wire. So in the case of a transformer, we're essentially wrapping a coil of wire around itself multiple times so that the magnetic field induces a voltage onto each turn of the coil as if it were its own wire, so it's multiplied by the number of turns. So in layman's terms, we're basically double dipping on the voltage induction so that we can get a higher voltage than what we put in. Now the amplitude of the signal that I was talking about before is the same as the voltage. If we amplify that and step up the voltage, it's going to max out the connection, which means that the ISP is going to give us the maximum internet speed it can. Finally, to make it easier to amplify the signal, we're going to use the 2 batteries as the transformer cores. This is going to simply augment the amplification by adding extra electromagnetic field strength. Now, no matter how complicated this sounds, it's going to be way easier to understand once I show you, and I'm sure plenty of you are eager to get started, so let me go and show you what you have to do. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is find your router and modem. This is going to be different for every internet service provider, but you should be able to figure it out. As you can see, this is my router, and then in here, don't mind the mess, is my modem, which actually goes to my ISP's fiber line, but it might go to a cable modem that hooks up your cable. It doesn't really matter. All we need to worry about is the cable that goes between your router and your modem, and then you want to just unhook that. Alright, so you just want to unplug the wire that goes between your router and your modem. If you don't have that, if you have those combination router modems, you want to unplug the wire between the computer and the router modem. Make sure to only touch the Ethernet cable. Be careful, because if you have fiber lines like in there, they're very delicate, and if you break them, they're a pain to replace. So let's head on to the next step. Alright, so once you have the Ethernet cable, the electrical tape, and the batteries, this is what we need to do. We're essentially going to coil the wire around the batteries in such a specific way as to amplify the signal. So first thing you want to do is cover the battery terminals with the tape, because we don't want them touching at all. It's really just to be safe, also so no electricity escapes and dampens the signal at all. Okay, so once the battery terminals are taped off, next a big piece of tape ready so we can secure it once we coil the wire correctly. So just tear that off, lay it aside. And now what you want to do is find about the middle of the cable. It doesn't really matter exactly where, just to have enough space. And you want to wrap once around this battery. And once you do that, just once, we're going to tape this off to make sure that it stays in position. And this should be enough to keep it like that. And that's the first one. Now for the second battery, we're going to do the same thing, except a little bit different. So get another long piece of tape ready. And then we're going to wrap it 4 times this time. But it has to be as close to this other battery as possible. So 1, 2, 3, Fourth one might be difficult. 4. Okay. And now we can tape that up, make sure it's all secure. Make sure the wires are coiled as tightly as possible. Then, once we do this, we can tape the batteries just a little bit to keep them parallel, just like this. So this is it. It looks weird, but in science explanation, this is going to look very familiar. Essentially, the signal comes into the first coil, and it creates an electromagnetic field through the battery, and then by the time it gets to the second coil, that's where it's amplified by that same electromagnetic field. And when it exits, it's going to be at a higher voltage, higher amplification than when it came in through this makeshift transformer we created here. So by the time it gets through this whole contraption, the signal is going to be maxed out, so the ISP is not going to limit your speed, it's going to give you the maximum speed possible. So now we can go and hook it back up and see what happens. Alright, so now we have this really weird looking cable, and we're going to put it right back where it was before, and the only thing you really need to know is that the side with the single coil needs to go towards the router, and the side with the 3 coils needs to go towards the ISP, down the line towards your ISP, so to speak. So I'm going to plug this side with the 3 coils into the modem, and then I'm going to put this side into the router. So once you do that, let's go and test it out and do a speed test. Okay, so let's do a quick preliminary test on speedtest.net without the special cable at all and see what I get just as a quick test. And it looks like it's going to be between 90 and 100. That's pretty typical. I pay for 100 megabit internet, so that's exactly what I would expect. And the upload speed should be pretty similar once that starts. It's 100 megabit up and down. Let's find out what the upload speed looks like. And it still looks like it's going to top out maybe in the 80s, maybe 90s. I almost never get the full 100 megabit. So, pretty typical. We can only hope that it'll be faster in the special cable test. I know that my ISP does offer gigabit, so hopefully in that next test, it'll be faster. Go change the cable out and see what it does. Alright, so let's run this test again. And oh my god, this is awesome. Okay, so as you can see, this cable unlocked the maximum speed for what my ISP offers, which is obviously gigabit internet. I couldn't have even hoped for this kind of speed, but I guess that speed pulse signal was amplified and maxed out, and now I have the maximum gigabit internet from now on. Alright, so obviously this is pretty amazing what you can accomplish with just a couple of batteries, and I can't imagine that ISPs are going to be able to patch this anytime soon. It would mean they would have to completely change how their networks function. So enjoy this, and hopefully it works for you as well. So why don't you guys let us know down in the comments what kind of internet speed you were able to get, and maybe your ISP as well. It should be interesting to see. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to thumbs up so I know you liked it. If you want to keep watching, I've got some other tutorials on the right-hand side. You can just click those or look in the description for the same link like if you're on a phone. And if you want to subscribe, I make new videos at least Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so I think it should be worth it. I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys, so thanks for watching. I will see you next time. Have a good one.
Well, see, that's the experiment that I did. I did experiment, and that's 0.8. The download and the upload still being kilobytes per second, whether it's 137, 95, or 113. Let's just say I've been doing that experiment. other than that, I haven't done any other experiment. Mine, I should probably just say. This was another one that I watched. I think I watched this one about the actual routers and the antennas. For those that actually have the antennas. And the actual modem itself.
Hey, what's up guys? I'm Theo Joe, and as many of you have requested, today's video is going to show you how you can quadruple your Wi-Fi internet speed for free, and in some cases even faster than that. We're basically going to use some household materials that you already have to improve your router's antennas so they are more efficient and powerful to drastically improve their performance. I'll be explaining a few things you need for this, how it works, and of course how to do it. And it's surprisingly simple, so let's get into it. First of all, let's quickly go over some basic background info about how your router works so that you'll know what's going on. And don't worry, I'll make it easy to understand. As many of you know, inside every router is a set of antennas that send and receive radio waves between your computer or another device. When receiving data, the radio waves cause electrons in the antennas to oscillate at the frequency of the wave, which then causes a corresponding electrical current in the antenna. The router then takes the electrical signal and reads the information encoded within it. And when it's sending data, it simply does the reverse to create radio waves from an electrical signal to send that data. But the problem is that antennas in routers are relatively small, often just being a single piece of wire surrounded by a plastic shell. So only a tiny fraction of the waves ever make it to the antenna. Most of it just goes by. Not only that, the antennas experience a lot of radio interference from other radio waves around. Things like your local FM radio stations, Bluetooth devices, your cell phone, or anything else radio waves all compete for the antenna. Even the Wi-Fi signals start bouncing off things around the room and come at the antenna in different directions, canceling each other out and making a lot of. So you can imagine that these antennas aren't very efficient at all. And to deal with this, when a router doesn't receive all the information it's expecting, it has to send another signal back to the source asking it to resend it. This causes huge drops in Wi-Fi speed. But if we were able to somehow improve the way the router receives and sends Wi-Fi data, we could solve this too. We would just need to do two things. First, allow the antenna to collect more radio signals, and allow it to better filter through all those extras that do arrive. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Now that you know the basics of what needs to be done, let's get into how we can create something to improve the router antennas. You're only going to need a few things. First, some empty plastic water bottles. You'll need one for every antenna on your router. My router has 4, so I have 4 bottles. Next, bear with me, you're going to need some common table salt. And finally, a roll of black electrical tape. These materials may seem strange and random, but it will all make sense soon. First, let me explain how exactly this is all going to work. We're going to take advantage of the properties of the salt and the electrical tape to create a type of filter that optimizes the electromagnetic waves into the router. And don't worry if you don't understand most of this, I'll walk you through everything later, but I think I should definitely go over this science because it is pretty interesting. You see, from the field of solid-state physics, we know that different arrangements of certain molecules can interact with electromagnetic waves. And what we mainly need to do here is reduce the interference between all the radio waves around the router. Because what normally happens is when the Wi-Fi signals reach the router, they don't arrive at the same time. Some may have bounced off a surface, some may have passed through materials, and others have arrived directly. When the waves are not synchronized and arrive at different times, this is known as being out of phase. For example, if the peak of one wave arrives at the same time as the valley of another, those waves will effectively cancel each other out, meaning that no net signal makes it into the router. Therefore, you need to wait until either one wave arrives without interference or multiple waves arrive in phase. Of course, this all happens at the nanosecond timescale, but say only 1 out of every 2 waves arrive in phase. That means that your Wi-Fi speed is half of what it could be, and usually it's even less than 1 out of 2. However, as I mentioned before, from research into solid-state physics, We know that certain arrangements of molecules, known as lattices, can polarize radio waves that pass through them. And the type of lattice that we're looking for is known as a face-centered cubic lattice. Just like polarized sunglasses, this only allows electromagnetic waves through if they're polarized or in phase with the other waves passing through it. And luckily, one material that has this type of lattice is common table salt. I can show you. Now, to show you what I'm actually talking about, why don't we take a quick look at some salt through the microscope? And we can use about 2000 power to do this. At this magnification, you can clearly see the cubic shape of the salt grains. This cubic shape is what polarizes the waves and forces them to be in phase. When all of the waves are in phase, even those that are not Wi-Fi, it makes the router much more able to ignore the signals it doesn't care about. Now, if you want to use your own microscope to find another material salt that has a face-centered cubic lattice, I recommend using a phase contrast or dark field type microscope. This will make it a lot easier to determine the structure of the material you're looking at. Of course, you could always just look up the material online to figure out what lattice type it is, but this is a lot more fun. I know a lot of that science sounds very complicated, but the basic idea of what we're going to do is we want to coat the inside of the water bottles with salt, which will create this lattice barrier to filter out the signals that we don't want. And we'll also use the electrical tape to further absorb radio signals that are completely wrong right off the bat, as you'll see. But I think that's enough science for now. So let me walk you through the steps of exactly what we need to do. Okay, so we're in the kitchen, and you're going to need for this step is the water bottles. I have 4 of them for 4 antennas, and the salt. And optional, you could use a funnel. It might make things a little bit easier. You don't really need one. And then just some water right out of the tap. Now, we want to make that coating of salt inside the water bottle to create that filter for when the waves go through it. So to do that, we're simply going to add some salt water, create some inside, and then shake it up to make that coating. So we're just going to take a little bit of salt, add some in. You don't really have to even measure it, maybe a teaspoon or so into each. And then once you add the salt, we're going to just add a little bit of water as well. And you don't want to add too much water, maybe a tablespoon or 2. And for this, we're going to use the funnel to make things a little bit easier. Just a dab. You can see I'm not adding much at all. Just enough to really cover the bottom. We can put these things aside. We're done with them. Now you just want to take the caps for these bottles and put them on to cover them up. And once they all have the water, salt, and they're covered, you can just shake them up like this. Don't have to shake it much. Just enough to get a little bit of a coating. And you might even see some of these crystals sticking to the sides. Shake it up for maybe 10 to 15 seconds for each one. If you really want to be thorough, it could be up to 30 seconds. So do that for each one. Even though there's separate drops you can see, there's going to be a very, very thin film of actual salt on the sides that you really can't see. So don't worry if it doesn't look like the whole thing is covered with water. And if you want, you can kind of do this. Just roll that water around, especially on the sides to make sure everything's covered. Okay, so now we've shaken these all up. We coated the insides. So the next thing you need to do is just dump these out. So we don't need the water in there anymore. Actually, we don't really want it in there because we don't want it to wash anything off the sides when it dries. So you just want to dump these out and then let them dry overnight with the caps off. And the reason you want them to dry overnight is because we want obviously no water to be on them when we put them on the electronics, but also overnight it's going to give it enough time while it's drying to solidify those crystal structures in order to block the waves coming in. So it's very important you let it completely dry. And also, if you don't let it go overnight, it might look dry, but at the molecular level, there might still be a little bit of H2O stuck to it. So you don't want that. So I'm just going to go dump these out, and then we can come back tomorrow once these are all dried. Okay, so now that you've let the water bottles dry, there should be a light, almost invisible coating inside the water bottles. And this is going to create our type of filter that will put all the waves in phase before they get to the router antennas. Now, this next step you want to do before we actually put them on is to get your electrical tape, and we're going to wrap a few lines around each bottle. And this is going to help prevent some vertical deflection and just filter out even more of the waves that are coming in at the wrong angle. So you just cut a piece just about that long. Maybe put one near the top. Just like that. Doesn't have to be very precise at all. Cut off a second one. Put that maybe about the middle. And then finally a third. put it towards the bottom, but not completely at the bottom, maybe a centimeter or so from the top. And this is all you need to do. It doesn't have to be exact. The spacing doesn't really matter. And you also don't want to put too many lines because obviously then it would cover up all the regular waves that would be coming in. And the reason you definitely want to use black electrical tape is because the color black is the color black because it absorbs more wavelengths of light, and therefore it's going to absorb a little bit more in the radio frequency range as well, as many as we can. So then you just want to do that to the remaining bottles you have. All right, that should do it. We now have all 4 covered in the strips of electrical tape, and we are now ready to go to the router and get this done. All right, so here we are at the router, and the last thing we have to do is just pop these water bottles on, and it should work immediately. As you can see, these antennas are pretty large, so I don't really have to do anything to secure them. They just slide right on and cover pretty much the entire thing. Now, if your antennas aren't as big, these might start to fall off, and you might have to use some more electrical tape to secure them towards the bottom. That one fell over. All right, so that is it. Now, it does definitely look kind of weird, but it should work great. So now that we've attached our contraptions to the router, we should have a much faster Wi-Fi speed already. But we obviously want to make sure this worked. So I did a couple test.net tests, so we can take a look at some of those before and after results. This is a test from before I attached the plastic bottles. All right, so it's obviously not bad. Around 100 megabits download, and the upload looks like it's going to be about the same, around 100 or so. Already a pretty good internet speed with Wi-Fi, so let's see if we can do even better. Now let's look at after the bottles are added, and wow, all right, so these are way faster downloads, much better than expected even. Wow, this is pretty surprising. And for the upload, again, amazing result. This is great. So let that finish to be sure. All right, yep, so clearly this made a huge difference. So there you have it. Using just some basic table salt and water bottles, our Wi-Fi speed more than I've tried this with typically depending on the, and if your router doesn't have antennas sticking out though, sorry, there's probably no way to do this. But besides that, this should be valid everywhere. So of course, I want to know how well this is for you guys. Let us know maybe your speeds before and after. And you can let us know down in the comment section, and definitely also read the description for more information. If you want to keep watching, I'll put some other videos right here. You can just click on those. And if you want to subscribe, I make new videos every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, so it should be worth it. So as usual, thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.
I don't even remember which one else I watched. I think it was this one. I think that was this.
I'm Theo Joe, and I'm going to teach you how to do something that you probably didn't think was possible, and that's how to boost your internet speed by optimizing your connection right from your wire. Now, it's really easy to do with your existing equipment, your existing wires and everything. You don't have to go and buy anything. It's really easy, so why don't I show you how to do it? It's really simple. Now we're basically going to do 2 things. First, we're going to clear off the contacts on the cable because most people don't realize that these connections usually come not in great condition right from the factory, and there's not that much they can do because it is damaged during the shipping. And secondly, we're going to optimize the data flow through the cable, and I'll show you how to do that as well. All of this is really easy, only takes a couple of minutes, so don't worry if it sounds complicated. You'll be able to do it no problem. First, what you need to do is, if you can, get a can of air which will blow onto the contacts to clean them out. What most people don't realize is that you really only need one of the contacts in the wire. Now, the reason there are so many of them is because even the smallest contamination can render the contact useless or even diminish the data transfer through it significantly. So what they do is actually add in multiple connections. This one has 5, it's Cat 5, but Cat 6 and Cat 7 have 6 and 7 connections. And the reason they add these, again, is because during transport from the factory to the store or the customer, there's going to be dust that accumulates, and there's nothing they can do to avoid that except add more connections so that you can have the connection clear, at least one of them. And the more connections clear you have, the faster the connection will go. So what you want to do is just blow it off, and you really want to either use canned air, or if you can, I guess you could blow into it just with your mouth and your lungs, but canned air is optimal because there's no contamination. And then blow it for, as long as you think is enough to clear off the connections. If you're in a really dirty environment, you probably need to do more. And that should be enough to rip those connections and have them all usable for your computer, which will significantly improve your connection speed because all of them are used by the internet. Now that's one great way to increase the internet speed, but if your connections were already clear, you probably wouldn't see that big of a difference. The second thing we're gonna do should significantly again increase your internet speed, so it'll be pretty much like a double whammy. And what we're gonna do is make sure that the data is flowing. Most people don't realize that for every cable, one direction from beginning to end is usually better optimized for data flow. So in most cases, people do more downloading than uploading. So we want to make sure that it's optimized to accept data and take data in the right direction as opposed to uploading, so that we'll get a faster connection when downloading, but it probably wouldn't increase your uploading speed. Now, it might not be that obvious how this could be possible, but I thought for the science buffs, we would take a look at the physics and look at Maxwell's equations, which explains exactly how this works. You see, due to irregularities in the manufacturing process, one end of the cable is usually than the other. So when we take the integral using tensor calculus of the Minkowski space of the wire, then we can see that the area under the curve, therefore the is going to be faster when you do it in one direction as opposed to the other. Therefore, if we start the connection and begin the flow of data through the thicker side, it increases the speed because the potential to the lower potential on that side is greater. Therefore, we want the thicker side to be towards the computer because that means there's going to be a higher potential than the other side, which means the data is going to go into the computer faster if that's the way it's oriented. So how do we know exactly which side is the thicker side to plug into the computer? Well, first you just have to look at the markings on the cable. Every cable is going to have words and symbols printed on it, so you know what kind of cable it is. Now, as the manufacturing process goes on, the cable gets slightly thinner during the assembly line process. So the words are printed from left to right, which means that it's going to be cut on the left, and the thicker side is going to be to the left of the words when you're looking at them upright. So all you have to do is look at the markings of the cable and orient them upright normally, and then look to the left side of the markings, and that's the side that is thicker, which is the side you'd want to plug into the computer. And it's probably a good idea to leave a mark on there for future reference. And again, this is assuming that you are doing more downloading. If you need a faster upload speed, then you would just orient it exactly the reverse. So instead of just talking about it, why don't we go and take an exact look at the computer and do a test for how much this will increase your internet speed. So I'll go to the computer right now.
Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is do a test with just a random cable I found around, wasn't cleaned off at all, and I made sure to plug it in the wrong way, so we'll see how this stacks up against the other cable in the next test. So let's do our base test first and see how it turns out. Just going to do a basic upload download test on speed test. Alright, so let's see if it averages out. Not too bad actually. We're already got a pretty good speed to start out with, so hopefully it'll be able to increase even more. That would be really nice. So wait for that one to finish, and then now the upload speed. And the upload speed probably won't increase that much because we want to optimize the download. So we'll see how that works. That's actually, I think, saturating my upload anyway, so I don't think it could go higher. So let's see. Alright, so 52 and 34 up. So now let's go and replace the cable with the optimized one that I just cleaned off and put in the right way, and we'll see how that performs. Okay, so I just swapped out the cable, and now let's do this test right again and see how it works this time. Going up. And alright, I can already see that it's much higher speed. Before it was about 52, now it's going up to about 80. So 30 megabit per second difference, which is really great. So that's a very noticeable increase and almost a 50% increase. And let's see what happens with the upload speed. It looks to be about the same, which is pretty much what we expected. So there wasn't really a change in the upload speed, but we got that huge boost in the download speed. So obviously this works, and it turned out with a pretty great result, so I'm happy with it.
Alright, so as you can see, there was a significant increase in the internet speed, and it really only took a couple of minutes tops to mark the right end of the cable and clean off the contacts. So before and after, we saw a huge improvement, and I'm probably going to do this with all my cables and make sure that they are optimized. If you guys found this video helpful, I'm really interested to know how this went for you guys, so be sure to leave a comment and let others know how it went, and maybe you have some other tricks that you know that other people don't that will help them increase their internet speed as well. And if you want to like this video, if you found it helpful, that'd be great. Give it a thumbs up so I know you guys enjoyed it. If you want to continue watching them on the right hand side, you can either click them or look in the description for the same links, such as if you're on a phone. And if you want to subscribe, I make new videos 3 times a week. I think it should be worth it. I look forward to hearing from you guys either in the comments section or on Twitter as well. So thanks for watching. I will see you next time. Have a good one.
Or that one or this one I was actually watching. That wasn't the one
Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can quadruple your internet speed for free. You may have seen some of my previous videos just to increase your internet speed, but this one is by far the best method, and it's very easy and only takes a couple of minutes. We're going to use some simple physics principles to our existing Ethernet cables, which will optimize the cable and maximize the throughput of our internet connection. To take advantage of the way ISPs sends the signal to your house, they are required, obviously, to give you the speed that you pay for. However, they know that over the long distance between their internet hub and there will be lots of signal degradation. So for example, if they want to provide someone with a 100 megabit connection, they actually have to initiate the connection with their signal strength, or else by the time it got to you, it would be much slower. So in using a stronger internet connection signal, by the time it arrives at your computer, you'll have the 100 megabits you paid for. And when the ISP sends out a signal, they typically use about 4 times the desired final speed, because on average, the signal degrades by about 75%. Sometimes the signal may even degrade more, which is oftentimes the reason your internet speed may drop below what you're supposed to get on occasion. Here's the thing though, by far most of the signal degradation occurs after it already enters your house. The internet lines that the cable companies use for internet are very high quality and degrade very little the signal over long distances. But the Ethernet cables you have in your house are actually relatively poor quality. They work well enough and most people don't even notice it, but they are actually very inefficient in reality. And these cables are the cause of most of the signal degradation of the electrical signal, and it occurs mostly between your computer and your router, not between the ISP and you. So if we can optimize the wires going into our computer, we can access the fully undegraded signal originally sent by the ISP. And because that signal degradation is not there that they were compensating for, we can access all of the signal. In most cases, this will mean that you will get about 4 times the internet speed that you're typically paying for and receiving. And if you're wondering about Wi-Fi, yes, that will also severely degrade the signal strength. Unfortunately, I haven't found a way to optimize the Wi-Fi signal yet, so we're going to stick to Ethernet cables for now. Now, to get started, you're only going to need a few things. They're household items. You shouldn't have any problem finding these. First is an Ethernet cable that goes to your computer. This is a very short one, but it's just as an example. Next, bear with me, but you'll need a flashlight. The brighter the better, but of course within reason. And finally, some aluminum foil, also known as tin foil. Either will work, doesn't matter if it's non-stick. Now, this is how it's going to work. You see, typical Ethernet cables, like other wires, use copper wiring inside. copper is a very conductive element, which makes it good for transferring electricity. Now, from chemistry, we know that copper is what is known as a transition metal and has one electron in its outermost orbital. This means that that one electron is not tightly bound to the atom at all, and is actually prone to escaping the electron cloud and moving around. So in this copper wire in the Ethernet cable, there are many extra electrons just moving around between atoms. This in turn causes interference, because the electrons from the internet signal have to compete with these random atoms moving around. However, if we can somehow manage to stabilize these electrons in some way, it would mean that the signal that we care about could pass through much easier with no interference. What we can do is use what is called the photoelectric effect, first discovered by Einstein. He discovered that when you shine light onto any material, it will emit electrons. So if able to emit electrons from the wires surrounding materials, these emitted electrons would then fill the electron shell of the copper atoms. Because the outer shell would then be full and stable, the electrons wouldn't move around anymore. Therefore, when the internet signal is transferred through the wire, it would no longer get all that interference. This is where the flashlight comes in. We can use it to cause the photoelectric effect and stabilize all the atoms in the wire, greatly increasing the wire's efficiency. So now that we know what needs to be done, let's go over to the table and I'll show you exactly how to do this. Okay, so here we have all our materials. We have the aluminum foil, we have the flashlight, and an Ethernet cable. I'm using a very short one just for a demonstration to save us some time. Yours will probably be longer. The first thing we need to do is wrap the cable with aluminum foil, and you want to make sure that basically all of this is covered. And this is just temporary. We're going to take this off after we're done. And you don't need a lot, so don't go and waste your whole roll of aluminum foil. Basically just one layer, about this much should be fine. And this is just so when we go to emit the electrons, nothing escapes and it all goes inside the wire as opposed to going out. It'll just make things go a lot faster. So after you have your cable mostly covered, it looks something like this, ready to go on to the next step. So you'll want to grab your flashlight, and as I mentioned, the brighter the better, but there is diminishing return, so don't go spotlight or anything like that. And we just need to turn on the flashlight and point it directly in to the wire. And you might have to secure this with some tape or something. That's optional. Mine's cooperating. So what's happening here is even though the Ethernet cable uses copper wiring, they typically have small fiber optic filaments running down the length of it in the shielding. So that light will be transmitted through the shielding and the fiber optic cables, and then the electrons will be emitted into the copper wiring. So you just want to let this sit for about 2 minutes, and of course you do want to stay with it in case the flashlight gets too hot or something like that. We don't want anything melting, so just use common sense and keep an eye on it. And it doesn't matter which side of the cable you use, the fiber optic filaments will transfer the light throughout the whole cable, so it doesn't matter. So after about 2 minutes, you can turn off the flashlight, take it away, and unwrap the cable. Just take all the aluminum foil off. We do not need it anymore. So now this cable is finished, and you'll notice it does not look any different on the outside, of course, but when I go to do the test and show you, it is very obvious this cable is pretty special. And maybe if you want to mark it somehow for future reference to know that this is optimized, you could put maybe a piece of colored tape around it or something like that so you remember. And that's all there is to it. Okay, so at this point your cable should be fully upgraded, but of course we want to know how well it works. So why don't I go to the computer and I'll do a before and after comparison. Okay, so I'm at the computer and I'm going to do a test on speedtest.net. And first we're going to do a test without the cable that we made. It's the regular Ethernet cable from before. So we're going to do that one first, and then we're going to do it with the cable afterwards. So I'm just going to run it right here with the automatically selected server, and we can see what it is first. And it usually gives me a boost in the beginning. It's like a special feature they offer, but I pay for about 100 megabits a second, so it usually settles around there and a little bit lower. So it looks like it's going to be about 100. So we're actually having a pretty good day today. It's actually getting the full speed, and for upload, it's not as good. It's kind of not up to 100. It's kind of dropping the 80s, but still pretty good. So I'm paying for 100. I'm basically getting 100, so that's not too bad. Hopefully it'll finish up soon.
and then we can finish up and do the next test with the special cable. So here we have the results. We have 98.88 megabits per second and 97.16 megabits per second for the download and upload, and ping doesn't get affected by this. So we're gonna go on and do the next test. I'm gonna go replace it real quick and come back, and we can do the next test with the special cable, and it should be about 4 times more, so that'll be exciting. Alright, so I just swapped out the cable, and now it should be significantly faster, so we can do the test again right from where we left off. Same server and everything. Now it should be significantly faster. Alright, so we still get a boost in the beginning, and it looks like it's even more than 4 times. So we more than quadrupled it. That's pretty amazing. I mean, this is an awesome internet speed. I don't even think they offer this kind of speed in any package you could even buy. So this is pretty awesome. And hopefully the upload speed will be just as good. Yep, it's getting that boost, and it's dropping out to about the same. So it about quadrupled, even more so than quadrupled the internet speed. Again, the download is a bit faster than the upload, but this is an awesome result. We have more than quadrupled the internet speed, so obviously this cable worked, and this is a great result. So hopefully you guys will get a very similar result. So there you have it. Our internet speed was successfully quadrupled using this method in our upgraded special cable. Now, it's important to remember that you might not get the exact same increase that we did. You could, for example, get a slightly slower or faster result depending on how much your ISP amplifies the original signal. If, for example, your internet company sends out a signal that is 5 times stronger, you'll get 5 times the internet speed. Also, the great thing about this is that the internet companies can't really do anything about it. They can't just weaken the signal because nobody else has the optimized cables. So this will work for you basically forever. So hopefully this did work for you, and I'm eager to hear from you guys about how well it worked for you. Did you possibly get faster internet connection from this? Be sure to let us know down in the comments section how well it worked. Also, if you did like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe because I make new videos every week. If you want, you can also follow me on Twitter. I'm very active over there. If you want to keep watching, I've got some other videos right here you can click on even if you're on a phone. It's a new annotation. So hopefully you enjoy those as well. I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.
I think that was your internet. Rechargeable battery. Rechargeable batteries for watched. Did only one of his videos. I only did one of his. But it watching his videos. Either not the megabytes per second that you're paying on your plan with your internet. It was like he was showing you where you can get more for your and well, I already did it with the batteries, so I'm hoping the one with the batteries experiment with the Stream Ambulance, or how you pronounce the website. The first thing I saw, ELEME, it said at provide also that's I can't even pronounce her Twitch username, but I'll just call her Mama. I think she goes by Mama from her Twitch channel. I told her how I have Team Ambulance reports back of what Twitch support does, and obviously it told me all clear on the issue preventing broadcasters. The word stirs, not broadcaster, but broadcasters from going live. We also found your stream keys, and I'm guessing it's talking about my Elgatostreamer 1982 and Elgatostreamer underscore what. The stream keys. They're trying to refer to as 1982, and this their bot. It's nice that actually the issue preventing that response. Yeah, there's always a but behind it. But how can I put this? If I told have string ambulance to telling me, and it's showing proof. On and that's to telling me what they're doing and how they're doing it, or telling me that all clear for all broadcasters and preventing them to me by and stream ambulance, which is what I said in the chat box. There, no problems with anybody. There shouldn't be no problem. All you have to do is get influence. Support is up to tell me what they're stream. What you did, what Joe did. Your router. Since I only have a combination router modem, like he said too, just do it from the combination router modem to your PC. And that's what I did. I did that, and he said he would do one for Wi-Fi. He would do it for Wi-Fi sometime down in the future. And when he does, I'm gonna capture that one. I'm gonna put that one as well as I did the other ones. Like, let's just say that Joe's been doing so much help, or not doing so much help, but providing. And he's helping everybody on increase their pay for X from your ISP. I would like to see how that will work with Wi-Fi connection. I would love to see it that way for Wi-Fi connection. It would be sweet. It would be awesome. But for, like he said, want to know how to prove and evidence that you can show you nobody else. When you saw Joe tell everybody on YouTube that they can, and that you can, that I can as well. I'm gonna have to put this recording as well as my other videos. Add this videos. Obviously, so freaking funny. Tagging and all that. The MP4. Kind of like tutorials of how to personally himself. If you were gonna do, if you, as it did for your methods for you when it didn't work for me. Come to me and say that. And say that if you were to if you were a concerner of doing what he showed you to do, if you were going to consider to increase your internet speed, what he showed you to do, and if it doesn't work for you, go to Joe, because I was the one that put his YouTube channel. Here with this I'll be back soon for something else, but I just want y'all to know this. I want y'all to know it. You can even go to Joe's not Twitch, but go to Joe's YouTube channel and watch him for yourself. You can even go to his channel and watch him himself do it, just as I did. I went to his channel and watched every single one.